the Bears.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Barely Educated. We are finally back from the holiday travels. I've traveled. He's actually still in Arizona. I went to Peoria. Chris, how are you?
Doing good up here in the mountains in northern Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona, my hometown. Visiting her family. It's been good.
Now, how good was the Bears Christmas haul for you?
Oh, that was let's see. Not as much as normal, but
Same. I got a T-shirt I really like. I didn't really need anything else. It's like kind of drowning in Bears merch as it is.
Yeah,
But that's kind of funny because I got a lot of it last year when they were so bad, and this year they're considerably better.
It's not
We'll
as
get
cheap
into all of that. Yeah. So we hope everybody had a very happy holidays as we are now, what is this, January 3rd?
Yep.
We are going to recap the last couple games that we missed and get into what I think was a repetitive conversation that is now having some clarity on the QB. Well, I think the QB has a lot of confusion still, but the QB and the coach, I've been saying, new data points can change your mind. It's perfectly fine. And that some of this we need to wait to see where the pick shakes out. Obviously, we've got lots to talk about and some clarity on some of the variables that were in the discussion. We know they do have the number one pick. Thank you, Carolina. An all-time fleecing.
Yes.
That's the big news. That is definitely the big news. But we did miss the Cardinals game, and we didn't have a chance Sunday to recap from the Atlanta game. We were both out of town there. Right. And then do you want to preview the Packers while we're at it? We never did get into whether we're doing that now. I think we should go ahead and do all of it right now.
I agree. So, I'm traveling Friday, and then we could do a recap Sunday after the game if you like, but I won't be able to before that. So
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so we hate the Packers, and their quarterback is closing in on 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns already in his first year, and otherwise they suck. So the game is right there for the Bears. Everybody else that plays the Packers carves up their defense, except for Minnesota last week, but considering their QB situation.
Yeah, that was I expected Green Bay to win that one, but not like that. Not by that much.
I think it just shows if you bottomed out at the QB spot because of injuries and what have you, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That guy's not ready to play. Jaron Hall or whatever his first name is.
Well, they switched.
Maybe he's a developmental rookie that they had to throw in there.
Yeah.
And then they bring in Mullins afterwards. It's just I don't think the pass rush was relentless from the Packers, but I don't know how much of that is just the Vikings situation there.
Right, but mostly I think I was surprised by the Vikings defense because they have been constant every game with blitzing and heavy pass rush, and I didn't see any of that. It seemed like they dropped guys in the cover. And to Jordan Love's credit, if you give him time, he's going to find someone open.
He makes a lot of really crazy plays that I feel like are horrible mechanically.
Yeah,
he's leaning back. He's on his back foot. He's jumping. They're completions. So he's a really hard guy to figure out. His overall numbers are phenomenal on the year for a first-year starter.
Yeah,
we got to get over it. They're good.
Two things about
it. Looks weird though.
Two things about that. One, every game he's got one fling it up in the air and somehow it lands in a Packers receiver's arms. He's got at least one of those every game.
And the one that game, he's coming across the field and he's got like 15 steps on the guy. I'm like, well, how is he this open?
Yeah, I don't understand. And then the other thing that I have to say is Love, I'm a big eye test guy. The eye test and the stats don't match. Because when you watch him, he is not as good as the stats indicate. And I'm trying to figure that discrepancy out. You know what I mean?
Part of it's coaching. They really do scheme guys wide open.
They do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a great coach.
He is.
I think that as remarkable as their running QB play is, and it is, and I'm not saying that this is more remarkable, but maybe needs more attention. Mm-hmm. They always have a good line.
Yeah.
They'll have 4 guys hurt, and it won't matter. Yeah. They'll have a guy you've never heard of at right tackle, and he'll totally stonewall an end for an entire game, and you're like, what? How?
Yeah.
So I think that was the remarkable thing about the game is they just picked up the blitz like it was no problem the whole game, and then Aaron Jones just killed the Vikings. So the Packers come into this game feeling pretty good about themselves. The playoffs on the line, but I think the Bears are a really tough matchup for them. If you just said this is if you just said this matchup was these teams, these players, and you didn't have the word Packers attached to it, you
It's
would say,
true.
man, this is going to be a good competitive game.
It's
But
true.
because it's the Packers and the whole mental thing that goes with it, it gets it gets messy. But they have more to play for than the Bears in theory, but I think the Bears are definitely keen to play spoiler. So I don't really think I buy that the Bears won't have a reason to play. I think they'll play all the starters. I think they'll play everybody that's healthy. I don't know if you
I
risk
think
your bet again. You might do the whole take a snap and keep the streak going thing.
I would argue the Bears have more to play for than Green Bay in this one because, yeah, if Green Bay wins, they're in the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, but they're not going to look at it that way.
But that's
I
the
think
reality.
equals works though. Bears
That's
have
it.
this would be a big win for the Bears.
And they know who their quarterback is going forward, and they have a young team, so they're on the right path for where they're wanting to go. For the Bears, how much does Justin Fields' performance Sunday play into his future on the team? How much does the game weigh on Matt Eberflus being the coach going forward? How much does it weigh
Yeah,
on?
I mean those are the two big questions of the season. We're going
So
to find out clarity here in a couple weeks, or
yeah,
this time next week we'll have clarity on the coach.
yes, we will.
I I mean I get what you're saying, and with the Bears it's certainly possible. And this transitions into some of the Fields chat, but we should probably cover the other games we missed first.
Yes.
But I don't know. That one of the big questions is which of these games in his whole 3-year career are we using for the decision? Because I know there's a school of thought that says how he finishes matters more than how he's played overall. And then there's a school of thought that says, no, you gotta look at the whole body of work. We can come kind of circle back to that. But I think the Bears are obviously trending in the right direction. And let's go now to the Arizona game real
Okay,
quick, and then we'll spend a few minutes on Atlanta. I thought they stunk against Arizona.
I
I thought that
agree.
was a miserable football game, and it was weird because they're terrible, and the Bears played down to the competition. I didn't think Fields looked all that good,
You didn't.
and then they go out and they beat down the Falcons, who are actually the sixth-ranked defense coming in. And you're like, they flipped these games. Like
Yeah,
the score you should have had against the Cardinals, you had against the way better Falcons, and you're just like, huh, okay.
the conditions of the Falcons game too. You would have think those would have been flopped too because of the snow and the slippery field and
Yeah, it
everything.
just kind of makes me think about the whole bear weather shtick and how silly I think it is. You dropped 37, no problem. Although I guess it was mostly over by the end of the first, but they had 14 points in the blink of an eye, the Bears did.
True. Yeah.
So
No, I agree. The Arizona game was it was a win, but it was a
you didn't feel good about it.
no, you didn't. And Fields had that really bad interception in the end zone. Like, oh, you
After the
can't throw
great
that.
run, like he nullified his own great play with a ridiculously
Yeah,
bad throw after it.
yeah. But to be fair to him, that was his worst interception in games. I mean,
Because the two against Cleveland, we shouldn't
no,
even
those,
evaluate.
no,
They're
mm-mm,
both Hail Marys, and one wasn't even an interception.
yeah.
How
So
annoying is it that the league never corrected that? Like, what are we doing?
they never did.
No, they just left it at interception.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I mean, the guy can't catch a break when it comes to officiating in league and all these kind of
yeah.
things. It's just totally absurd. But then you come to Atlanta and it's one of his best games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Maybe pumped for his hometown team, maybe his future team. Who knows? Yeah,
Auditioning, yeah.
he looked great. He looked.
That quarterback situation is rough. Oh my gosh. Those guys both stink.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know if that motivated him so much as maybe the last home game thinking. Because if you remember the interviews with him leading up to those games, he sounded kind of resigned to his fate.
hmm
That he may not be the Bears QB and it's in God's hands. And he gave really good, mature answers. So you had said 6 weeks ago now, what was it, 7 games to go or
yeah.
something? So this would be 6 weeks ago. He had to have what, two great,
Three,
three great, two good, and you tolerate two okay, right?
one okay and one bad is what
Well,
I.
you were going to give him one bad.
Yeah.
Well, the bad happened when? Last week? Cardinals?
No, the bad was. Oh gosh, I can't remember now. It was so long ago, but it
The
did.
Vikings game wasn't pretty, but they won. And he had the two fumbles, but then he had to throw. That's got to be the bad one because he fumbled twice in the fourth quarter, and they couldn't move the ball for most of the game.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and then he made
So
the
Cardinals would be the okay.
yeah, but
What's the Browns?
there weren't three great. There
There
was
definitely are just only one great.
there was one great. Yeah,
And Detroit was borderline good to great, probably just good.
yeah,
I mean, it's
good.
all subjective when you're trying to just put like an adjective to it. I get this.
Yes,
But my point is, as much as I was happy for him for that Atlanta game, and I love the crowd chanting and him getting that
Yes.
moment, we've always said we love the guy as a person and he's got the right temperament for the market, and that's not something to just dismiss. That will be part of the decision-making rubric for Ryan Poles. I still think the overall body work isn't really good enough in the passing game now that you have the number one pick. And people don't want to hear it, but it's about cost and opportunity. If you keep trying with Fields, you're running out of time to evaluate him before you have to pay him. I know people don't want to hear, oh, who cares about the rookie clock? Everybody in this league cares about the rookie clock. Keep up with the league more, is what I would say to people who don't understand this point.
Mm.
It'd be interesting to see what the Niners do when Brock Purdy's coming into his money.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
So like, and yes, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's the roster build up and then throw a QB in. There's the let the QB carry you, but make sure you get enough talent around him. Just get the QB when you can. There's a lot of schools of thought, but this really probably comes down to his total body of work, in my mind, in the passing game especially, which is how you win late in the playoffs, is still league average on a good day. And there are
Yeah.
plenty of days where it's terrible. It was really good against Atlanta. And that was great to see. But it
And
doesn't
even
really move the needle much because I got 3 years with one 300-yard passing game.
even against Atlanta, he still had the fourth quarter fumble. You know.
Yeah, true. Still did it. They just got it back.
Now that
And the fourth quarter numbers are terrible. And I know the context matters. I'm the guy who sits here and preaches context all the time. So are you willing to throw out the whole first year as evaluation because it's Nagy? And the
oh
whole
yeah,
second year? And the whole second year because it's rebuilding?
not the whole second year, but there were flashes that we thought going into this year would be built more upon, but not. They haven't happened to the extent that we had hoped. It's
Yeah,
true,
I think this year should weigh in the calculus heavier than the first two, which you can't throw them all the way out.
and I want to
And
be
I've
clear, it's not all his fault either.
no, that's the context too.
Yeah. Hmm.
Some of it's the play caller, some of it's the weapons, and we got one good weapon in Moore and another good one in Komet, but not a dynamic one really. And then the receiver twos have been very disappointing. Everybody
Yeah,
after Moore has like Moore has been awesome, but it hasn't had the effect of opening those guys up, and they just
I
can't
know.
connect.
I can't
But I
understand
can't
that.
exonerate him totally either.
Right, right.
And if I don't know he's the guy after year three, isn't
Well,
that don't I know? And it's just wishful thinking to say otherwise. But the locker room loves him, so it is really complicated. And
if
there are special traits, so it's a tough decision.
but again, if they didn't have the number one pick, I don't think we're having this conversation about, oh, we still don't know. I think if they
Yeah,
didn't, it'd be like, oh yeah, Field, all right, he's still making progress. This is good. Let's keep putting building some weapons around him. The fact that it's the number one pick changes all of this.
yeah. If you're sitting there at 7 from Carolina and
Yeah.
10 with your own, we're probably all saying, no, don't go up. Just stay home and pick and build around him. But you don't have to even go up.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to keep in mind the conversation is not Fields versus the number one pick quarterback. It's something like Fields plus what you could trade that pick for versus the pick plus what you can trade Fields for.
Mm.
And so my whole thing right now as we sit here today is he's likely gone, but it's not a slam dunk because he has played better down the stretch here. Still like to see more. And the year three body of work is concerning. We can go all the way back to Buffalo when I was all worked up because he didn't throw the one-on-one to Moore and he missed Mooney, had a linebacker on him on another play, and I was like, he's still not seeing it. That looked like prophetic.
Mm.
So it's not easy because of all the other things we love about him.
Right.
He's probably gone, but my two things right now as we sit here today is number one, whatever Poles does, the Bears are in a great position and
Agreed.
they should be able to rip somebody off.
Yes.
Just get some good assets either way because Fields is worth more than Sam Darnold and he went for a 2, a 4, and a 6.
Wow.
People are like, he might get you a third. I'm like, not
No.
if you're using the proper most recent comp of the age of a quarterback being traded. He's
Hmm.
better at every single thing than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and
He
there's
ought
got
to
to
get you a borderline first or 2 seconds or a second and a conditional second or something like that. More than just a third. That whole like GMs think it'll be a third. That's not going to be what happens.
hmm.
Okay. Or if you traded the pick, you're going to get more than you got for last year because these two QBs, Williams and May, are already considered better than the ones at the top of the draft during the process. It doesn't matter how Stroud has turned out now. You have to go back to like what people are thinking at the time. And you could just drop a little bit and get some really great assets and still have a chance at Marvin Harrison Jr. There are so many juicy and delicious and wonderful scenarios. The Bears have a treasure trove of assets already. We're fighting about this, but we're finally not sitting there going, how do we get a quarterback? What magic is this that these other teams do? We got a bajillion ways right now.
Yeah.
And instead we just throw stones at each other on Twitter. And then I trust Poles right now. I do. I can't
Yes.
believe it because I was so annoyed with him last year because I didn't love the plan to rebuild around a second-year quarterback with a bunch of garbage. But man, sitting on these assets, he's done it. Tyreek Stevens is awesome. Shout out to him, Defensive Player of the Week, by the way.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal as a rookie, and
Jervon Dexter's come along.
You could see the potential in Stevenson in the preseason. Like, man, this guy may have something. And once it started to click, man, he's looked fantastic.
He's brought in a bunch of guys that are playing well.
Yeah.
For all that we joke about Brisker getting hurt once a game and coming back in, he's a good safety. I don't love picking a box safety, but at least they picked a good one. And as you see the intangibles, he, to be fair, is more than a box safety. He's also a heartbeat leader type guy, which you do need. Dexter's come along. Darnell Wright is excellent.
Yep.
Speaking of him, I ran into my wife's former high school class president and friend, Ramon Foster. Finally bumped into him at the gym yesterday. Got to talk to him for 2 seconds. Former Steeler. That's for you, former student Tim.
Former student Tim. Shut up, Tim.
And picked his brain for a second. I didn't want to be that guy who was like trying to talk to a guy for like 10 minutes about football. And he's like, would you go away so I can work out?
Right.
Loves Darnell Wright.
Awesome.
Loves him. So that was just kind of a fun miscellaneous point. The DJ Moore trade is nothing short of hysterical. I mean, we are going to go the rest of our lives. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't have a more lopsided trade than that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the number 1 pick and a number 1 wide receiver who's going to be a Pro Bowler, who's setting personal bests in your totally dysfunctional passing game. What happens if you pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Ooh.
I mean, there's so many exciting routes we can take. I just think we should just let the process play out. If Poles loves one of the QBs, go ahead and trade Fields. The locker room will get over it.
Yes.
If Poles says, no, I've seen the thing I need to see that no one else is looking for from Fields. I know he's going to be fine now. And I'm gonna trade this thing for a treasure trove. And if it doesn't work, I'll pick a QB in 2 years or something. Okay, I trust him. It's not what I would do, but I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt at this point.
I could not agree more. He's demonstrated not only that he can make some great decisions, but that he's not afraid to fix bad decisions. And
Yeah, well said.
that impresses me just almost as much, I guess, is what I would say. But yeah, I
And the
totally.
Montez Sweat trade. I mean, there's a ton of moves. I didn't even get to all of them.
Yeah. Oh, that Sweat trade has been. Whew,
Oh, Andrew Billings.
That's made the whole defense.
No press.
Yeah.
Great run stuffer. Earned his
Mhm.
extension. Go ahead and give a similar deal to Justin Jones at this point, by the way.
True.
He's played much better this year, too, because there's more talent around these guys, and they needed that difference maker, so his whole Sweat will be a multiplier. Totally accurate.
And
As a guy who understands this game in charge, finally. We don't have to fight about it. Just let him do what he does.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you got a pass rush from those four, that back end of that defense looks phenomenal. And if they could add one more edge rusher, solid edge rusher,
Gordon's having a great year.
Yes, he is.
Because they're not moving him around.
And he can jump like Spider-Man.
Yeah, my kids love that. I had to show them.
Me
I had
too.
I had to find the online, like, a Twitter version of it, and just my 5-year-old watched it on repeat.
Yeah, Lauren.
She's like, which bear is Spider-Man? Later, when it is actual name, which bear is Spider-Man?
Lawrence Holmes pointed out it's incredible he could do that in the fourth quarter with all his gear on, and it looked like nothing.
That's true. That's true. Just a friendly reminder that all these guys are better athletes than any of us know anyone, right? Like any of us know.
Yeah.
Worded that weird. So I guess that brings us. I don't know. Is there more you wanted to say on Fields? I don't.
No, nothing that hasn't been said before, but I totally agree with you that whatever, I find myself in a place, whatever Poles decides, I'm going to be okay with it. One, because it's kind of a win-win at this point, because Fields has played well. You don't know how good Caleb Williams will Drake May will be, but I don't think either one of them are going to be bad. You know, so
It would surprise a lot of people who tend to get this right a lot. But
yeah,
the
like
league has a hard time with QBs, period. So you never
and
know.
clearly, like Bryce Young is struggling, but that's a lot of what's around him and not just his, the size and everything. He might be better if he was plopped into Houston. He's probably looking better than he has with Carolina. So
Yeah. A lot of it's situation, and that's the crazy thing too. You got the number one pick without being a train wreck of a team.
yeah, yeah,
You're actually, if the Bears had finished off those losses that they couldn't hold the leads,
right.
they're that team nobody wants to play in the playoffs, who probably can't really go on a run, but you don't want anything to do with their defense in a playoff game.
Even one of them, if they held on to one of them, they're 8-8 right now.
And this is an elimination game for both
Yeah,
teams.
yeah.
So it's come together pretty well for Poles. And that brings me to the coach.
Oh boy, yeah. Here we go.
Being having tactics.
I'm still firing him because I'm picking a QB and I want to put the clock all together. Even though I can admit he's done some good things, I still think it's more important to have the organizational vision line up. But I thought he was a train wreck. Well, I mean, come on, after September, he was a train wreck. He'd lost 14 straight games. He couldn't speak straight,
he
and everything he said was stupid, right? Like he was a train wreck.
was.
Now he's passable, and he's a good D coordinator. And I don't think it matters enough compared to getting an offensive mind in here to pair with the number one pick.
Yeah,
Which means if you keep Flus, I think you should keep Fields.
real quick, can
I
I
s-
just throw this
Go
in there
ahead.
that there's been some comments about, oh, maybe he would take a demotion to defensive coordinator. That's not going to happen. So stop saying
Go
that.
ahead and file that one under the maybe Fields would take a pay cut. No.
Right? Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Where were you?
No one's doing anything to do you a bunch of favors except for Carolina. You got your favor. Stop being greedy. So, best scenario is still clean reset, coach QB on down. Next best for me, which I don't really like that much, but would be keep them both. And then we'll figure out with coordinator later. Worst scenario is still screwing up the clock and having done what you did to Mitch and Justin and do it again to another QB. Hopefully, he'd be good enough to be, screw up proof. But we've seen that song and dance play out twice now, where it definitely hurt their development. Don't go halfway. Go all the way one way or the other, in my book. Your thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking of our text chat the other day. I got to scroll back to it here, but you thought
The one I most am against is the one I think is most likely.
uh, bringing back Flus and Field and Getzy are gone.
Or even, yeah, something like that.
You know, that's what you. Yeah, I
It seems like this franchise loves its defense. Now, I do wonder if George is going to get involved at all. He says he won't, but what did George think of the fans chanting? What will George think after the Green Bay game? And then that kind of segues to the Courtney Cronin thing that you were going to
yes,
mention.
we do need to mention that, and it's no surprise. Like we thought this all along. Do you have her exact quote there, or you have the just?
No, I got the one I have loaded up is for the Pro Bowl when we're done with
Oh,
this.
okay. Yeah, basically what she said was what we'd always thought that Eberflus was a George decision, not a Ryan Poles decision, even though Poles said it was. I mean, he's not going to go in there and say, no, it wasn't mine. I'm
Yeah,
the.
and she tried to backtrack a little bit and clarify it, and I thought that still the same thing he said earlier. Poles was in the room, but he wasn't the lead decision maker,
She
is
even
really what
said,
she said.
she said Ted was involved in that too. What
Even worse.
the heck?
So that's why the reason I wanted to bring that up is I don't know what that means for Poles' decision on Eberflus.
Uh-huh.
And I would have said that, 6 weeks ago, if he keeps Eberflus, that hurts my optimism regarding Poles. Now I'd say I can see why he'd do it, even though I wouldn't. That's how much they've improved. I still think he's pretty bad late in games. They're a horrible fourth quarter team and pretty good for the first three quarters.
Yeah.
Some of that's coaching, some of that's the QB, but losing those leads is a killer to me. But most of all, just the biggest point I'm still trying to make is league wide. Let me know. We'll do it next Sunday when we have a clearer picture of the playoff teams or whatever, sometime next week. There's going to be one or two defensive background coaches There's going to be John Harbaugh, his own little misfit special teams background. Clearly an exception to the rule, but an awesome coach. They're
Very good.
stomping everybody. They're playing all these good teams and just annihilating them, by the way.
Oh gosh, they
And then
just
it's going to be a bunch of guys with an offensive background.
you know, you know.
And D'Amico Ryans, if they get in, everyone's going to sing his praises for good reason. And then he's going to lose his coordinator, and he's going to have to find another good one and find another good one. And if I'm bringing in Caleb Williams, I want to pair him with the coach he's going to have for 10 years.
I keep thinking about.
That's all I care about because I want that long-term home run Super Bowl aspiration. If you just want to be good enough to get into the playoffs, you can run it back with everybody and possibly do that next year. But I really want us to aim higher.
I keep thinking of Paul saying, "Remember where I came from," and that's Kansas City. Andy Reid, offensive guru, is in place, and then if coordinators come and go, doesn't matter because the guy is still going to be there.
And doesn't it feel a little bit like a roster ready to drop a young QB into if you want?
It's a great situation for that.
If you signed a center and a receiver and then drafted an edge or whatever permutation of those things you did, he's not going to a normal situation for a number one pick where
Right.
it's all trash like Bryce Young did.
Right.
So for all those reasons, I'd still fire the coach, thank him for his service. He's still getting paid. Let's not make a victim out of the guy too much here. And bring in the organizational flowchart that makes sense in the synced timeline. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily expect that.
And we haven't even said anything about what Kevin Warren might be thinking. Who knows what
Yeah,
he's.
he's too much of a mystery still.
Yeah. He could be the
Okay.
guy Monday that says, all right, bye polls, bye flus. We don't know.
Yep. So if you keep Flus and you keep Fields, do you keep Getsy so Fields doesn't have to learn a new offense?
Gosh, I think so.
Do you pick up Fields' fifth-year option? Johns has been floating this idea that you don't pick up the option, which is crazy because I think he's usually pretty smart, but that's totally stupid. If he's not good enough to pick up the fifth-year option, then he's nowhere near good enough to pass up the first pick being a quarterback. Like that does not make any sense when you have the first-round pick. Well, we got to do another prove-it year for our QB. No, you don't pick the QB with the
Yeah,
first-round
I
number one
agree with
pick.
you on that.
If you can't
100%
extend
agree.
him, then don't even begin to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess if you do the route where you keep everybody, you might as well bring Getsy back and say, hey, he's looked better the last few weeks too, because it's all so lame. That logic is already lame. Why can't you apply it to everybody?
It's true. And it looked like against Atlanta, he finally called a whole game that played to what Fields does well now. And that's all I've ever wanted. Work with Fields where he is now and build on that. Like being a teacher. That's
It's
what
like,
we was
and who are your coordinators if Flus is a lame duck with a win now
Yeah.
mandate? Frank
Yeah.
Reich, just because they went they were in Indy together? Do they even like each other? Do we even know that?
Yeah, but it's probably someone like that, a situation like that.
So that's just another reason why I think the clean reset is best.
Yeah.
But I guess you could also do one other scenario, which I don't think has a realistic shot at all. You could hire a coach and let him figure out what you want to do with Fields versus the number one pick. But I don't think Poles will cede that kind of power to the coach.
No, I don't think so. I think Poles is going to just make the decision on the quarterback, not the next coach. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I think that the way this Bears team this organization has been in the past, Flus is more likely back than not. Wild cards are Poles doesn't seem all that like previous GMs. Ted's gone, and we don't know what Warren will do. I'm just a little worried about the George interference still.
Especially if the Bears win Sunday. Yep.
All right, Pro Bowl stuff. Just because I think it's kind of interesting. The retweets were effective to some degree. How about this? Jaquan Brisker at strong safety, third.
Wow.
Votes. This is league-wide. It's not conference. You can see this on Rappaport's Twitter, by the way. At corner, Jalen Johnson, second.
Sounds right.
Guard. This is in a weird order. I'm not sure why they're listed in this order, but whatever. Tevin Jenkins is fourth.
Okay.
Punter, we don't got that. Defensive end, Montez Sweat, fourth.
Wow.
Think about that. That means Bosa, Myles Garrett, and for some reason Chase Young. Well, the Niners are just everywhere in this. They showed out. Clearly, he's not the second best defensive end in the league. But that means Montez had more votes than Max Crosby,
Wow.
than Trey Hendrickson, than I think they must have counted Micah Parsons as outside linebacker. Yeah, they did. Inside linebacker, TJ Edwards, fourth. Right ahead of Roquan. Quarterback. Yep. Justin Fields, 10th.
Okay, that sounds about right, actually.
He's in there.
Yeah.
So Darnell Wright, 9th. That's
Hmm.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Kicker, Cairo Santos, 3rd.
Ooh, that should be a little high. Well, maybe third is okay. Yeah.
I think the two ahead of him have had better years because they have a bigger leg.
Or you got
It's
Butker.
Hopkins from the Browns and Aubrey from the Cowboys.
Oh,
Butker's
oh
on
yeah,
here, but he missed a couple games.
yeah. That Cowboys dude, man, he's whoo, he's
Tight
good.
ends, Cole Kmet, 6th.
Okay.
Fullback, Blasingame, 6th.
What?
Can't believe that's
There's
even a
five other
position still.
fullbacks.
Yeah, I didn't even know there were that many in the league.
Yeah.
And then DJ Moore, 6th.
Oh, that's got to be higher. But
So this is like hilarious improvement.
yes,
That's
it
what I
is.
mean about if you drop the number one pick into this roster, there are good players on it now. Poles has turned it around pretty quick there.
Yeah, they won't be bad next year if they have Caleb Williams or Drake May. They won't
Even
be.
if the QB even if Fields is better next year than those guys would be, it's still probably the right long-term play. And the money and the contract is not to be dismissed, despite how much people hate hearing about it. It will be a factor.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we pick some games?
All right, let's do it.
We got Saturday slate, and we can actually pick the Thursday game for once, which is oh, there isn't one. Ha,
Yeah.
good. We're still
I
right
was
about it
gonna
all
say.
year. Keep the streak. You do have Houston Indy. That's like a big time division swinging game, depending on what Jacksonville does. But in the interest of time, we'll lead with Bears Packers. Packers favored by 3 at Lambeau, 325. Why are there no noon games this week? By the way, look at this: Tampa, Carolina, Cleveland, Cincy, Minnesota, Detroit, Jets, Patriots, Falcons, Saints, Jacksonville, Tennessee. All the noon games stink.
That's by design, I think.
Yeah, and then you get an unbelievable amount of 325 games.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Packers only favored by 3 at Lambeau, so Vegas calls this a pick 'em.
Yes, they do. That definitely stood out to me.
All
Uh,
right, who you got?
I still need the Bears to beat them before I pick them to beat them.
Same,
So I'm
same.
going like 27-24 Packers, something like that.
And I think the Bears will play starters, but there is a scenario where if something happens and one guy almost gets hurt and you're kind of like, ooh, you could see them being like, maybe in the second half we'll dial it back.
I don't know. Flus is going to want to win that game for his
He
own
is.
future.
He is. But I don't think anyone banged up is going to like necessarily gut it out type of thing. There are some important players banged up. But like you said, though, I just can't take the Packers um, Bears seriously until the Bears start to actually perform better. Even a close loss would be an improvement at this point.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think the defense is good enough to keep it close.
You suck, Chris.
And I think that was pretty much what your score was too. And I think we always struggle to stop their pass rush, and that'll be the biggest difference. Packers 24, Bears 20.
Okay.
And I hate the Packers. All right. The only other games that I think are all that interesting really on Sunday are Niners Rams, but the Niners have already clinched.
Yeah.
So throw that one out as far as interest goes. And then a humdinger of an AFC East showdown. Buffalo at Miami, and in a perfect microcosm of the Bills season, I believe this is true. If they win, they're the 2 seed.
Wow.
And if they lose, they're out.
And look at that. A change.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy. But look, they had a change in the middle of the season at offensive coordinator that may have saved their season.
That game is in Miami, if you care.
I don't care.
Man, that is a really evenly matched game looking at the numbers too. I'm for fun because I just think it's funnier, and I want both these teams in the playoffs, not just the one. I'm gonna pick Buffalo on the road,
Yeah, and
despite being on the road. I think they're actually playing better coming into this game than the Miami that we just saw get trounced by the Ravens.
is Hill kind of banged up?
Give me the Bills. He's been banged up for a while, yeah.
Yeah, that.
They can't keep those receivers 100%. It feels like one of them's always playing hurt between Hill and Waddle.
Yeah, and that radically affects.
Buffalo is favored, by the way.
Oh,
Even
in
on the
Miami.
road.
Wow. Okay.
I just realized that.
Very interesting. Yeah,
And because the Bears care, Carolina's play. No, wait, we're good. We don't care. Love it. Love it.
they've
Can I
done
just say
their.
if they do trade, Can we please do one where we take a player and make the team the worst team in the league? I have had more fun rooting against Carolina than I have had rooting for the Bears.
Oh no.
Well, maybe not more fun, but I got more of what I wanted.
Uh-huh.
So maybe that's how we should do that. Can we trade for Daron Payne and a bunch of picks from the Commanders, and then they'll stink? Let's do that again. If we're going to trade the pick, which again I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
But if we're going to, can we please leave it a scenario where we get a really horrible team we get to follow, and that was satisfying. Look, they lost
Yes, it
again.
was. We thought Carolina would have a high pick, but certainly not number one. But here we are.
I would have thought like 3 to 5 or something, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, all right. Well, that's all I got.
All right. Sounds good. We'll do you want to try to do a post game after Sunday, after the Bears Packers? We probably should.
After the kids get to bed, because those games, let's see.
They'll end about 6:30.
It'll be in right at supper. Yeah, maybe like 9.
Okay. That sounds
It'd be
good.
tricky for me to do when it ends because that's like supper and the last hangout before they go to bed. Before
There you have it,
they return to
listeners.
school and all that stuff.
Be ready around 9 Central Time, listeners, on our Twitch channel. That'd be awesome. And then things will really get exciting after that, won't they? Whew. It's going to be a fun offseason.
Will we need an emergency pod?
Yes. Yes, probably like 6.
Well, we'll do one if we need one. But
yes. We will need one. We will need one.
Okay. You think they're firing him?
Well, even if not, there's going to be huge news to discuss.
Oh, you think we need the emergency pod if they don't fire him?
I think either way.
Yeah, maybe it's Getsy's fired. Emergency pod.
Yeah. Flus is here, but Getsy's gone.
Wow, breaking news. Firefighters are currently trying to put out a massive fire at the home of Tyreek Hill.
That's breaking news, really?
Yeah.
Holy moly. Hope he's all right. Hope everyone's okay.
I hope nobody's home. You never know if these guys are actually, they got multiple homes and all. Hope everyone's all right. That's pretty crazy.
All right, and on that note, thanks for listening. Barely Educated. We will talk to you after the Bears-Packers game. It's been a roller coaster of a 2023 season. We'll try to put a bow on it next time we talk to you. Find us online at barely_educated at all the social outlets. We will talk to you next time.
You suck, Chris.
You are indeed a dip from Chicago.
Hold on to your butts.
I love the Bears.